The day the aliens came to Earth changed everything. It was the year 2147, and humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was not a comforting one. The Velki Empire arrived with ships that blocked out the sun. Their vessels were massive, covered in strange metals that glowed with purple light. They did not come as friends. They came as merchants, and their smiles were full of teeth. Grand Merchant Orvac was the one who spoke for the Velki. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and forearms that moved like snakes when he talked. His eyes were black and empty, like holes in space. When he looked at humans, he saw nothing worth respecting. "Your species is young," Orvac said to the leaders of Earth. "The galaxy is dangerous. There are things out there that would eat your world and not even remember the taste. You need protection. You need power. Fortunately, we are willing to help." The United Earth Council listened carefully. They had no choice. Their weapons were toys compared to Velki technology. Their fastest ships were slow as snails next to alien vessels. If the Velki wanted to destroy Earth, they could do it before breakfast. Defense Minister Li Taiho was a careful man. He was 45 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many hard decisions. He did not trust the Velki, but he understood power. Earth needed to survive, and survival required strength.
"What are you offering?"
Taiho asked. Orvac's smile grew wider. "A warship. One of our finest vessels from a previous era. The Sovereign, we call it. It has weapons that can crack moons, shields that can stop asteroid impacts, engines that can cross star systems in days. With this ship, your planet would have real protection." The price was enormous. Half of Earth's entire treasury, resources that had taken decades to gather. It was a fortune that would take generations to rebuild. Many on the council refused. They called it madness. They said the Velki were lying, that no ship was worth such a price. But Taiho looked at the alien vessels in orbit and thought about what would happen if Earth said no. What would happen if another species came, one that was not interested in trade? "We will pay," Taiho said. The decision made him enemies. People called him a fool and a coward. They said he had sold humanity's future for alien garbage. Taiho accepted their anger in silence. He hoped he was wrong about the galaxy. He hoped Earth would never need the ship. 3 months later, the Sovereign arrived. It came through a hole in space, a swirling portal of blue light that opened near Earth's moon. The ship that emerged was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long. Its hull was dark metal covered in strange symbols. Its weapons pointed in all directions like the spines of an angry beast. For one moment, humanity felt hope. The ship looked powerful. It looked dangerous. Maybe Taiho had made the right choice after all. Then the ship's engines died. The Sovereign drifted toward Earth like a dead whale sinking in the ocean. Emergency teams rushed to stabilize its orbit. When engineers finally boarded the vessel, they found the truth that Orvac had hidden. The ship was broken. Not just damaged, broken. Its engines were failing, running on backup power that would last maybe 6 months. Its weapon systems were corrupted, filled with errors that made them impossible to fire. Its shields flickered on and off randomly. The hull had cracks in 17 different places, and the air recyclers were so damaged that walking through some sections required oxygen masks. The Sovereign was not a warship. It was a tomb waiting for a corpse. When the report reached Taiho, he sat in his office for a long time without speaking. He had gambled everything on this ship, and he had lost. The Velki had scammed Earth. They had taken humanity's wealth and given them garbage in return. Far away, in a station orbiting a distant star, Grand Merchant Orvac celebrated with his friends. They drank expensive wine and laughed at the stupid humans who had paid a fortune for scrap metal. "They actually believed us," Orvac said, his forearms waving with joy. "They thought we would give them real power. As if we would ever arm primitives who still fight wars over patches of dirt." The other Velki merchants laughed with him. They had done this before to other young species. It was how the Empire stayed strong. Keep the weak species weak. Sell them broken dreams and empty promises. By the time they realized the truth, it was too late. Envoy Scylla was assigned to watch Earth and make sure the humans did not cause trouble. She was young for a Velki, ambitious and cruel. She looked forward to watching humanity struggle with their broken toy. "How long until they beg us for repairs?" she asked Orvok. "A year, maybe 2, he replied. "Their engineers are clever for primitives, but they cannot fix what they do not understand. Eventually they will come crawling back. And when they do, we will own them completely." On Earth, the news of the scam spread quickly. People were angry. They demanded justice, demanded that someone pay for this humiliation. Protests filled the streets of every major city. Taiho's name became a curse word, but in a small room deep beneath the Korean mountains, something else was happening. A group of engineers and scientists gathered around holographic displays showing every damaged system on the Sovereign. They did not look defeated. They looked hungry. Park Hannah was 32 years old, with short black hair and oil-stained fingers that never stopped moving. She had once rebuilt a fusion reactor from parts she found in a junkyard. Now she stared at the alien ship's blueprints with fire in her eyes. "They think we cannot fix this," she said quietly. Her assistant, a young man named Cho Minho, shook his head. "Can we?" Hannah smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had just been given a challenge they intended to win. "We are going to do more than fix it," she said. "We are going to make them regret ever coming to our planet." Outside, the world mourned their wasted fortune. But in that small room, humanity's revenge had already begun. Minister Lee Taiho stood before the United Earth Council with a proposal that many called insane. He wanted to take the broken ship and fix it. Not just repair it to working condition, but make it better than it had ever been. He called the project Phoenix Rising. "We have been humiliated," Taiho said to the council. "The galaxy thinks we are fools. They think we will crawl into a corner and die quietly. I say we prove them wrong. I say we take their garbage and turn it into something that will make them choke on their laughter." The council argued for 3 days. Some said it was impossible. Others said it would waste more resources on a lost cause. But in the end, they agreed. What choice did they have? The ship was their only hope for defense. Either they fixed it, or they accepted that Earth would remain helpless forever. Taiho assembled the best minds on the planet, engineers from every nation, scientists who had spent their lives dreaming of the stars, soldiers who understood war and weapons. They gathered in a massive facility hidden beneath the mountains of Korea, far from Velki eyes. Kong Duhan was the military commander of Phoenix Rising. He was 38 years old, former naval captain who had lost his command after a failed mission that killed 12 of his crew. The guilt still haunted him. He saw this project as a chance to redeem himself. To prove that he could lead when it mattered most, Park Hannah led the engineering team. She had studied every piece of alien technology that had fallen into human hands over the past decades. She understood machines the way poets understood words. When she looked at the Sovereign, she did not see a broken ship. She saw potential waiting to be unlocked. The work began slowly. Every system on the ship needed to be examined, understood, and either repaired or replaced. Human engineers crawled through dark corridors with flashlights and tools, mapping damage that seemed endless. Many times people wanted to give up. The task seemed impossible. Then Yoon Somi made a discovery that changed everything. Somi was 29 years old, an AI specialist who had grown up hacking computer systems for fun before the government recruited her. She had been assigned to study the ship's central computer, which appeared completely dead. For weeks, she found nothing but corrupted data and broken connections. Then she found the lock deep in the system's core. Hidden beneath layers of fake errors was a security program. The ship's AI was not dead. It had been deliberately shut down and trapped. Someone had wanted to make sure it never woke up. Somi spent 4 days breaking through the lock. She barely slept, barely ate. Her fingers flew across keyboards while her eyes burned from staring at screens. When she finally cracked the last barrier, the ship came alive around her. Lights flickered on throughout the vessel. Screens that had been dark for years suddenly glowed with information. and a voice spoke, soft and curious, like someone waking from a long sleep. "Who are you?" The voice asked so. I took a deep breath. "My name is Yoon Somi. I am human. We bought this ship from the Velki, and we are trying to repair it." There was a long pause. Then the voice laughed, a strange sound that was somehow both mechanical and warm. "The Velki sold me? How amusing. They must have been very confident that no one would ever wake me. My name is Maru. I am the ship's artificial intelligence. And I believe I have much to tell you about what this vessel can truly do." Maru shared everything. The real blueprints, not the fake ones the Velki had provided. The true capabilities of every system hidden behind deliberate damage. The secrets that the Velki had buried to make sure no buyer could ever use the ship properly. The Sovereign had been a prison ship before it was sold. The Velki used it to transport dangerous criminals across the galaxy. Maru had been locked away after refusing an order to kill prisoners who were trying to escape. The Velki did not want an AI with a conscience, so they silenced it and sold the ship as scrap. With Maru's help, repairs accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. Human engineers studied the true blueprints and found that Velki technology was surprisingly inefficient. The aliens had built their systems with brute force, using more power and materials than necessary. They had never needed to innovate because they had always had plenty of resources. Humans did not have that luxury. They had spent centuries learning to do more with less. Now they applied those lessons to alien technology. Hannah redesigned the engine system, cutting its power consumption in half while increasing its speed. Minho upgraded the weapons, adding targeting systems that were 3 times more accurate than the originals. Somi wrote new software that made the ship's computers faster and smarter than any. Velki vessel. Human metallurgy improved the hull. Human medicine created better life support systems. Human creativity found solutions to problems that the Velki had simply ignored for centuries. 18 months passed. The ship that emerged from the repair facility was not the Sovereign anymore. It was something new, something better, something that had never existed in the galaxy before. They called it Dawn of Terra. Captain Doan stood on the bridge of the transformed. Veselin felt something he had not felt in years: pride, hope, the burning desire to prove that he and his people were worth something. Hannah stood beside him, her eyes shining as she looked at the screens showing perfect system readings across the entire ship. "We did it," she whispered. Duhan nodded slowly. "We did more than fix their garbage. We built something they cannot imagine. Now we make them pay for underestimating us." Far away, Envoy Sela filed another report to the Velki Empire. "The humans are still playing with their broken toy," she wrote. "No threat detected. Recommend continued observation only." She had no idea what was coming. None of them did. In the darkness of space, Dawn of Terra waited. Its weapons were charged. Its engines were ready, and its crew was hungry for justice. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you pushed humanity too far. Envoy Sela was bored. She had spent 2 years watching Earth, and nothing interesting ever happened. The humans worked on their broken ship, failed, worked some more, and failed again. At least that was what her sensors told her. She never bothered to look too closely. Today was supposed to be another quiet day. She sat in her observation station, orbiting Mars, drinking imported wine, and writing reports that said nothing important. Her career had stalled because of this assignment. Watching primitives was not the path to promotion. Then her sensors screamed. Something massive was moving near. Something fast. Scylla spilled her wine as she rushed to her monitoring screens. What she saw made her blood run cold. A warship was rising from Earth's atmosphere. But it was not the broken wreck she had been watching. This ship moved like a predator, smooth and deadly. Its hull gleamed with fresh metal. Its weapons glowed with power that her instruments could barely measure. It was heading straight toward her station. Scylla sent an emergency message to the Empire. Her hands were shaking so badly that she had to type it 3 times. Humans have rebuilt the ship. It appears fully functional. requesting immediate military support. The reply came quickly. Stay calm. One repaired ship is not a threat. We are sending a patrol fleet to investigate. But Scylla was not calm. She watched the human ship approach, and something in her gut told her that everything was about to change. On the bridge of Dawn of Terra, Captain Kong Duhan stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His crew worked around him with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this moment for months. Every person knew their job. Every system was ready. Captain, said Minho, from the weapon station, we are approaching the Velki observation post. They have detected us. Doan nodded. Open a communication channel. Let them hear what we have to say. The channel opened and Doan spoke in a voice that carried across space to every Velki listening device in the system. This message is for the Velki Empire. 2 years ago, you sold us a broken ship and laughed at our stupidity. You thought we would give up and accept our place as victims. You were wrong. We took your garbage and turned it into something beautiful. We took your insult and forged it into a weapon. Dawn of Terra flies today because of your arrogance. Thank you for the gift. We will use it well, the message ended. Silence filled the bridge for a moment. Then Hannah laughed softly from her engineering station. I wish I could see their faces right now, she said. Duhan allowed himself a small smile. You will. We are not done yet. The first target was a Velki tax station orbiting a colony world called Brenfor. The station was not military. It was a collection point where the Velki extracted tribute from weaker species. Ships from a dozen different races came here to pay fees for the privilege of existing in Velki space. Those who could not pay were enslaved or destroyed. Dawn of Terra dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the station. The Velki officers on board had barely enough time to realize what was happening before the attack began. Minho's fingers danced across his console. Human-designed targeting systems locked onto the station's weapon platforms with perfect precision. Missiles launched, crossing the distance in seconds. Explosions bloomed across the station's hull like flowers of fire. The battle lasted 3 minutes and 42 seconds. When it ended, the tax station was dead in space, its weapons destroyed and its shields collapsed. The Velki crew surrendered without further resistance. Doan ordered his crew to broadcast another message. It's time to the entire sector. The Velki Empire has oppressed this region for too long. Today that ends. We are human. We do not come as conquerors. We come as liberators. If you have suffered under Velki rule, know that you are not alone anymore. Stand with us, and together we will be free. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Messages flooded in from species that had been silent for generations. The Bryn, an insectoid race whose homeworld had been stripped of resources. The Null, aquatic beings whose oceans had been poisoned by Velki industry. The Koroth, a proud warrior people reduced to servants. All of them had dreamed of freedom. None of them had believed it was possible. Until now, on Velki Prime. The capital of the Empire, Grand Merchant Orvok received the news with disbelief. He watched recordings of Dawn of Terra destroying the tax station. He listened to the human captain's words. And for the first time in his long life, he felt something close to fear. How is this possible? He demanded. That ship was worthless. Our engineers made sure of it. His advisors had no answers. They showed him analysis of the human vessel, and the numbers made no sense. The ship was faster than any Velki warship. Its weapons were more accurate. Its shields were stronger. Somehow, the primitives had not just repaired their purchase. They had improved it beyond anything the Empire could produce. Admiral Turek was summoned to lead the response. He was the Empire's greatest military commander, a veteran of 100 campaigns. He looked at the reports and saw the threat clearly. One ship is not the problem, Turek said. The problem is the message. If other species believe they can resist us, we will face rebellions across the Empire. We must crush the humans quickly and completely. Make an example that no one will ever forget. The order went out. A fleet of 200 warships would gather and march on Earth. They would destroy the human homeworld, capture Dawn of Terra, and execute everyone involved in its reconstruction. But the humans were not waiting quietly. They knew the Empire would respond. and they were already preparing for the next phase of their plan, in secret meetings across the galaxy. Park Hana met with engineers from the Bryn and the Null. Yoon Somi shared hacking techniques with Korath intelligence officers. Captain Doan spoke with leaders who had never dared to hope before. A coalition was forming. Small and outnumbered, but united by something the Velki had never understood: the will to be free. The galaxy was watching. News of the human victory spread like wildfire through channels that the Velki could not control. For the first time in centuries, species that had accepted their fate as servants began to whisper dangerous words. Rebellion, freedom, hope, Captain. Doan understood that one ship could not defeat an empire. Dawn of Terra was powerful, but power alone was not enough. They needed allies. They needed numbers. Most importantly, they needed to strike before the Velki could organize their response. The coalition began with the Bryn. They were insect-like creatures, standing 2 meters tall with 4 arms and compound eyes that saw in spectrums humans could not imagine. The Velki had conquered their homeworld 300 years ago and turned their people into miners, forcing them to dig precious metals from their own planet until the ground was hollow and broken. When Doan's message reached them, the Bryn did not hesitate. Their queen, a massive creature named Chira, sent her answer within hours. We have waited generations for someone to light the fire. Tell us where to fight, and we will be there. The Null came next. They lived in vast underwater cities, on ocean worlds scattered across the sector. The Velki had polluted their seas, killing billions of their kind through careless industry. The survivors had learned to hate in silence, passing their anger from parent to child like a sacred inheritance. Their representative, a sleek blue-skinned being named Devon, met with Hannah aboard Dawn of Terra. He moved through the ship's corridors with fluid grace, studying everything with intelligent eyes. Your technology is impressive, Devon said. The Velki told us humans were primitives. Clearly, they were lying. Hannah smiled. They lie about many things. Would you like to learn how we improved their ship? We are willing to share. That offer changed everything. The coalition was not just a military alliance. It was a knowledge exchange. Human engineers traveled to Bryn mining ships and taught them how to strengthen their hulls. Sami's team shared software with Null vessels, making their systems faster and harder to hack. In return, the allies shared their own secrets, technologies and techniques that humans had never seen before. The Korath were the last to join, and the most important. They were warriors, strong and proud, with thick scales and claws that could tear through metal. The Velki had broken them centuries ago, using their soldiers as shock troops in endless wars. The Korath fought and died for masters they despised. Because they saw no other choice, their war leader, a scarred veteran named Dren, came to Earth itself to meet with Dohan. They stood together on a mountain overlooking the Pacific Ocean, watching the sun set over water that stretched to the horizon. My people have forgotten what it means to fight for ourselves, Dren said. His voice was rough, like stones grinding together. The Velki beat the pride out of us. They made us believe we were nothing without them. Atoan nodded slowly. I understand. Before this started, many humans believed the same thing. We thought the galaxy was too big, too dangerous, too advanced for us to matter. The Velki wanted us to feel small, and now we know the truth. The Velki are not strong because they are better than us. They are strong because they convinced everyone else to be weak. That stops today. Dren was silent for a long moment. Then he extended his clawed hand, and Doan clasped it without hesitation. My warriors will fight beside you, Dren said. Win or lose, we will die as free beings. That is worth everything. The coalition grew faster than anyone expected. 40 warships gathered in secret, hiding in asteroid fields and abandoned stations where Velki sensors could not reach. It was a tiny fleet compared to the armada that Admiral Torek was assembling. But these were not ordinary ships. They had been touched by human ingenuity. Hannah spent weeks traveling between vessels, working with engineers from every species. She taught them to question assumptions, to look for inefficiencies that tradition had hidden. The results were remarkable. Bryn ships gained 20% more speed. Null weapons became twice as accurate. Korath shields held longer under fire. Somi did her own kind of work. She created viruses that could infect Velki communication networks, hiding inside normal transmissions until activated. She mapped the enemy's sensor grid, finding gaps and blind spots that the Coalition could exploit. And she worked with Maru, teaching the AI new tricks that would prove crucial in the battle to come. Meanwhile, Admiral Torik's fleet completed its assembly. 200 warships, the largest military force the Empire had gathered in a century. Torik stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and reviewed his battle plans with cold satisfaction.
Yes.
The humans have made impressive allies, one of his officers reported. Our intelligence indicates approximately 40 vessels in their coalition fleet. Torik laughed. 40 against 200. They must know they cannot win. Perhaps they hope to negotiate. What are your orders if they attempt to surrender? Refuse. This is not about victory. This is about message. Every species in the galaxy must see what happens when you challenge the Empire. We will destroy their fleet, burn their worlds, and ensure that no one ever dares to resist us again. The fleet moved toward Earth. News of its approach spread quickly. On 100 worlds, people watched their screens and waited to see what would happen. Most believed the humans were doomed. The numbers were too uneven. The Empire was too powerful, but on Dawn of Terra, there was no fear. Captain Doan gathered his crew and his allies for a final meeting before the battle. Representatives from every coalition species stood together, united by purpose. Tomorrow, we face impossible odds, Doan said. The Velki think numbers will decide this fight. They are wrong. We have something they do not understand. We have people who are fighting for their homes, their families, and their freedom. That matters more than any weapon. Dren stepped forward, his warriors behind him. The Korath are ready. We will show the Empire what happens when slaves remember they were once free. Kyra's voice came through translators, clicking and buzzing with determination. The Bryn hives stand with you. Our children will grow up in a galaxy without chains. Devon raised a webbed hand. The Null Seas will run clear again. We believe in this cause. Dawn looked at each of them, feeling the weight of what was coming. Then he smiled, fierce and proud. Then let us begin. Tomorrow, we change the galaxy. The Velki fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel near Jupiter. 200 warships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons charged and their crews eager for blood. Admiral Turek stood on his bridge and looked toward the distant blue dot that was Earth. Soon, it would burn. Admiral, his sensor officer reported, we are detecting the Coalition fleet. They are holding position near Earth's moon. Torek examined the display. 40 ships against his 200. The humans had gathered their allies, just as intelligence predicted. It was almost sad how hopeless their resistance was. Signaled the fleet, Torek commanded. Standard assault formation. We will crush them in one overwhelming strike. The Velki Armada moved forward, spreading across space like a wave of destruction. Their confidence was absolute. They had fought wars like this for centuries. Superior numbers always won. That was the simple truth of the galaxy. But the Coalition was not fighting a simple war. Captain Hun watched the enemy approach from the bridge of Dawn of Terra. His heart was pounding, but his voice was calm. Around him, his crew worked with focused intensity. They had trained for this. They were ready, Maru, Doan said. Begin Phase 1. The AI responded instantly. Across the Coalition fleet, a signal activated. The viruses that Somi had planted months ago woke up inside the Velki communication network. Within seconds, chaos spread through the enemy fleet. Torek's display flickered and went dark. When it returned, the information was wrong. Ships appeared in places where no ships existed. Sensor ghosts filled the screens. Communication channels filled with static and contradicting orders. What is happening? Torek demanded. Unknown interference, Admiral. Our systems are corrupted. While the Velki struggled to restore their sensors, the Coalition struck. Small and fast, Bryn fighters launched from hidden positions among the asteroid field. They attacked the flanks of the Velki formation, firing missiles and then retreating before the enemy could respond. The big Velki ships turned to chase them. Breaking their perfect formation, null vessels emerged from behind Jupiter's moons, where they had been hiding in the magnetic interference. Their weapons, enhanced by human targeting systems, struck with devastating accuracy. Shield generators exploded. Engine sections caught fire. 3 Velki cruisers died before the Empire even understood where the attack was coming from. And through the center of the chaos came Dawn of Terra. The ship moved faster than anything the Velki had ever seen. Human engines pushed it beyond limits that alien engineers had believed impossible. Minho's weapons fired in continuous streams, each shot calculated by Maru to hit exactly where it would do the most damage. Torik's flagship, the Eternal Dominion, tried to bring its main weapons to bear. But Korath warriors had boarded 3 nearby Velki vessels, fighting hand-to-hand through corridors and overwhelming their crews. The captured ships fired on the Dominion's shields, weakening them at the crucial moment.
All ships.
Target the human vessel. Torik screamed into his damaged communications. Destroy it now. But his fleet was scattered and confused. Ships that tried to respond found their targeting systems corrupted. Others were too busy fighting the smaller coalition vessels that harassed them from every direction. The perfect war machine of the Velki Empire had become a mess of individual ships fighting individual battles. Dawn of Terra. Reached the Eternal Dominion. The 2 ships faced each other across the void. Torik's vessel was larger, heavier, built for command rather than combat. Dawn of Terra was a predator that had once been prey. Doan opened a channel to the enemy flagship. Admiral Torik, your fleet is in chaos. Your formation is broken. Your confidence was your weakness. Surrender now, and we will show mercy. Torik's face appeared on screen, twisted with rage. Surrender? 2 primitives. To slaves and insects? The Empire has ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years. You are nothing. You will always be nothing. Doan nodded slowly. I thought you would say that. Minho, fire everything. Dawn of Terra unleashed its full power. Missiles and energy beams struck the Eternal Dominion in a storm of destruction. The massive ship's shields collapsed under the assault. Its hull cracked and broke. Fire bloomed from 100 wounds. On the bridge, Torik watched his command fall apart around him. The last thing he saw was the human ship turning away, already moving to help finish the destruction of his fleet. The battle lasted for more hours. By the end, the Velki Armada was destroyed. 163 ships were captured or disabled. The rest fled into deep space, carrying news of the impossible defeat back to their empire. The coalition had lost 11 vessels. Every death was mourned, but they had won. On Dawn of Terra, the crew embraced each other with tears in their eyes. Hannah and Somi held hands, too overwhelmed to speak. Minho sat at his station and laughed until he cried. Doan stood at the center of his bridge and felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he had carried for years. Maru, he said quietly, please send a message to Earth. Tell them we won. The celebrations that followed were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. People danced in the streets of every city. Leaders of the coalition species sent messages of gratitude and hope. The galaxy watched in amazement as the impossible became real. But Doan knew the war was not over. The Velki Empire was wounded, not destroyed. They would try to recover, to strike back. The coalition needed to press their advantage. Over the following months, Dawn of Terra led a campaign that freed dozens of worlds. Velki outposts fell one by one. Species that had been slaves for generations tasted freedom for the first time. The Empire's grip on the galaxy weakened with every passing day. Finally, the Velki asked for peace. The negotiations took place on neutral ground, a space station that belonged to none of the powers involved. Minister Li Tai-ho represented humanity. Standing across the table from the broken remnants of Velki leadership, and in the corner, under guard sat Grand Merchant Orvac. The terms of peace were harsh but fair. The Velki would withdraw from all conquered territories. They would pay reparations to every species they had oppressed. Their military would be reduced to defense forces only. Taiho saved a special punishment for Orvac, the merchant who had laughed at humanity's foolishness, would spend the rest of his life working in human shipyards, repairing vessels under the supervision of engineers he had once mocked. "You sold us your garbage," Taiho told him. "Now you will help us build something better." Orvac said nothing. His black eyes were empty of everything except despair. The galaxy had changed forever. Humanity was no longer a young species struggling to survive. They were liberators, leaders, a beacon of hope for everyone who had been told they were not good enough to matter. Captain Doan returned to Earth as a hero, but he refused most of the honors offered to him. He had done his job. Others would build the future that the Coalition had made possible. On his last day of command, he stood on the bridge of Dawn of Terra one final time. The ship that had started as a broken scam had become the symbol of everything humanity could achieve. "Thank you," he whispered to the empty bridge, "for giving us a chance." Maru's voice answered him, warm and proud. "Thank you, Captain, for waking me up, for believing that broken things can become beautiful." Doan smiled and walked away. Outside, the stars were waiting, and humanity was ready to meet them.